One, we love that it's in Al Qasim. We see Al Qasim as this kind of vibrant, nodal region for Saudi Arabia. Everywhere I go around Saudi Arabia, people say, I'm from Qasim, I'm from Aras, I'm from Uneza, I'm from Burayda. It just has this huge diaspora all around the country, and that's important for us because when we travel to Khobar or Dammam, or we travel to Riyadh or have matches in Jeddah, you meet people there from that place, and they can kind of form a small fan group to support us when we're on the road because we're playing away a lot. But that base of people told us that you'd have a great group of supporters, and obviously a lot of the big and affluent families are from our region as well. The other thing we liked about the club was it was a newer club. We know that if we try to just do what everyone else does in Saudi Arabia and kind of replicate the model of the existing clubs, it would be very challenging for us to be competitive. We have a much smaller budget than bigger clubs in the kingdom or the higher spending clubs. And so we knew we had to really think outside the box in order to succeed. And Al-Khaloud gave us that opportunity. It's a club that only had spent one season in the first division. I meet a lot of people who have never been to Aras. I meet a lot of people who have never even heard of Al-Khaloud. And so what that gave us the opportunity to do was kind of reshape it, to change the brand, to change the image of the club, to change the profile of the club, and to kind of start from scratch, almost like a startup company. It's the equivalent of a startup company, but competing in the top tier. Week 2, we're playing against Ronaldo here in Riyadh, your club at Al Nassr. And that was, so it's kind of like a startup company, but at the top tier. As I said, I came to Saudi Arabia from a football perspective in 2023. We were looking, or even earlier, actually, probably 2021, 2022. We were looking to build out our social media presence in the kingdom. We set up a dedicated Arabic social media team for Qadis. And then we started unlocking what we'd call kind of brother, like you have in this concept of sister cities, brother club kind of partnerships between Qadis and some of the biggest clubs in the region. Through just opportunistic introduction, we were connected with the club at Al Nassr, and we announced in February of 2023 a kind of a brother club partnership with Al Nassr. And the objective of that partnership was to do social media activations, of course, but to play friendly matches, to share coaching expertise across, so bring their coaches and their administrators to Qadis, and likewise send ours here and share best practices, maybe explore player trading. At Qadis, we have a pretty strong women's football program, and Al Nassr were just starting their own women's football at the time, so help share some of those best practices and how do you create economies of scale again between your women's team and your men's team. And so we launched all of that, and it ultimately did result in several of those types of actions. So Al Nassr has played against Qadis a couple times now. We did some of those coach trainings. We brought people back and forth. And then, later, I guess it was probably that summer when the big announcement came out, so 6 or 7 months later, that Ronaldo was joining Al Nassr. And then this, kind of thrust the club into the global sphere, because it was obviously a huge club before that. I'm not denigrating it, but that put it on the radar of global football fans who had maybe not been following Saudi Arabia to that point. And so I like to say that, though, I was appreciating the league and Al Nassr in this case long before the rest of the world had started fixating on it. Saudi Arabia has, I've said it before, but it has the highest per capita fandom of football in the world. 75% of Saudis would describe themselves as football fans. That's the highest in the world. Even football mad countries like Brazil, it's like 63%. And most European countries, it's even closer to 50%. And so that's a really important number, because of what it means is Saudis are very closely following football. They have one of the highest football IQs globally. They know everything. They know who Qadis played in a preseason match 3 years ago, and they know where one player, his career trajectory, which academy he went to, and now where he's playing, what his statistics were last year. Their minds for football are like a machine. And you see that passion, you see that engagement, not only in the stands, but particularly online. As I said, posts in Saudi Arabia around football get way more per capita engagement than they do in Europe or North America. Clubs in Saudi Arabia have many more social media followers than American sports teams like the Yankees or the Red Sox, these kind of institutions of American sport. And so it's wonderful because they know football. They're not, I've sat in stadiums in other countries where the fans don't really even understand the rules of football, let alone all those kind of details. And so Here they deeply, passionately love it. They understand it. They're smart fans. And so that gives me a really fun opportunity to engage with them on social media and then in person as well. And so when I'm sitting in the stands with fans, they're talking to me about players we should bring on. They're talking to me about stadium design concepts. They're talking to me about, players, kind of playing models and structures. I mean, it's a really constructive and positive conversation rather than why didn't you spend more money in this transfer window to bring in, Messi to Al Khaloud. And so it's a really wonderful conversation, and I feed off that positive kind of constructive environment. And they can criticize me, but as long as it's kind of constructive feedback, as long as it's something I can do something about, I'm happy to hear it and happy to respond to it. And so it's been a really, really positive experience engaging with the Saudi fans in person and online. So I think we have some kind of short-term goals and long-term goals, but certainly for us in Saudi Arabia, we want to be known as a producer of talent. We want to be the place where young Saudis go because they know they're going to get the best coaching, nutrition, sports science, kind of whole ecosystem, player care. For young players, they're going to get great education. Their parents are going to feel that they're getting, they're around a club that has good ethics, morals, great infrastructure. So if we can be known as kind of the Red Bull, to borrow the phrase you just mentioned, kind of where there's a stamp of approval that if a player comes out of Al Khaloud, he has a certain level or she has a certain level of discipline, of rigor, of quality that's consistent and strong across people, and that we are ultimately a club that produces a lot of alumni that play in some of the biggest clubs in the world, that are contributing to the Saudi national team. I mean, I've said it before, but my objective is that maybe even as early as the World Cup in 2026 in the United States, hopefully there's at least one player who has connections to Al Khaloud playing in that tournament, and hopefully for the subsequent ones in Spain and ultimately the big one in Saudi Arabia in 2034, that there are Khaloud alumni, Khaloud former players, academy graduates that are representing the national team. If we're able to do that and build that reputation as a producer of talent, one that is able to become financially sustainable by selling players into higher spending clubs, and ultimately is helping support the Saudi national team, then we will have done a very good job here in the kingdom.